For the first time in over 4 years, we were back on the court in Connecticut at Insports, and 8 teams battled it out last night in week 1 of the Winter 24 season. We have some analysts here to break down all the action on our weekly post-game show, go over the stats, and kind of hear some analysis about the games that took place again in Connecticut. Great to be back. We're going to get to Greg Horne and Jahbari Brown in a second. Greg Horne, sorry, buddy, no Flint Tropics this season. You'll have to find another team that isn't Chris Radzinski's team, because we know that that's not going to be the team that you jump on the bandwagon. I'll reveal my bandwagon team in a second, but we do try to be unbiased here on the post-game show. We're going to start with one of the 2.5, I like to say, returning teams, Yagga and Get Money. Before I do that, I'm wearing the merch. Go get your merch from our store. Use code HOLIDAYS for free shipping right now. So build your legacy merch, ton of different stuff out there, and kind of support the league. And I wear it way too much, and it's kind of good for every occasion. So, I mean, of course, I'm biased and I'm allowed to kind of wear it almost wherever, but it's cool. I mean, I think it looks good. Greg has his hoodie that he wears. It's all good.
I do.
We gotta get you some stuff, my man. So we'll get to you in a second. And then also, what's that?
I plan on getting it for sure.
There you go. See, he's on it. Even if he's lying, you'll never know it. He's a company man.
I actually get it. I promise.
Good. Good. All right. I appreciate that. I love it. And then also shout out to C4. So this is their blue raspberry energy drink. Super good. We have a partnership with them going on. So also want to shout out their powder, Extend, workout powder. So we'll have a link for that in our bio. Your pre-workout, your post-workout, everything with them. We have a good partnership with them going on. You get some discounts through the league. So click the link in our bio and shout out Matt Marconi, a longtime player who helped make that connection happen, which we're very appreciative of at the Legacy League. So without further ado, let's get into the games. As promised, Yagga and Get Money. Only a 12-point win by Yagga, one of those returning teams. And really from what I've seen in week 1, the returning teams don't always win. That's not a given, but most of the time they have that, they know what to expect. They know the style of play. They've been there before. And they're ready for how much faster the game is, how different it is, and a lot of times that advantage does help, right, for the returning players. It helped definitely in week 1, even after the long layoff. But that's not to say Get Money didn't keep it close and battle and sure, the final score, a 12-point game, a win is a win, and ultimately a loss is a loss. But we'll get to some of the stats in a second. Let's get to Greg. And Yagga, formerly Shocker City, they've won it. They've made deep runs. A lot of the same guys are back. But Greg, we'll start with the team that won in Yagga. Their post game was hilarious. It's like we never left. But what did you see from them? That stood out and helped them get the win.
I mean, honestly, it's the same old. If you've followed Legacy for this long, Yagga they're just like Shocker City in the sense that they're going to high flying offense, not a lot of defense. It reminds you of that LaMelo Ball mixtape when he scored I think it was 90 in a middle school game or high school game. It's that's kind of how they play, and it's so fun to watch. It's the game. It's kind of the game you want to see each week because it's just. I mean, Joe, you remember your battles with them when they play a better team. They look a little different, but I think with them, it's just Mike Davis kind of is getting back into it. Eric Langston is going to be really, really hard to stop. He has just kind of a smooth skill to his game, and then he could just kind of body anyone else in the league. So Shocker's going to be kind of fine. It's kind of the same old with them. They're going to hit a lot of threes, really high kind of velocity, fast break offense, and they're going to be okay. But they just got to, maybe in, a few of these games when they come in, a little lackadaisical, they'll maybe try harder on the defensive end in these coming weeks.
Yeah, so before we kind of get to that point, Eric Langston is just one of those players, and I'll mention them throughout the night, that just looks better in Run TMC blue. I mean, I'm still biased, and just the color of the brings out their eyes, But Eric Langston did lead the way and was one of the top scorers for his team, 27 points, and made 5 threes. One of 3 players to make 5 threes for Yagga, joining Mike Davis, who had 31, and Davon Pratt with 15, and all of his points from beyond, behind the arc as we do some math there. But so Yagga kind of doing what they expect. And on that defense point, I was talking to Ty McCray on Get Money after the game. They were kind of scouting a little bit, and I was saying to them the playoffs are different, and so that gets to your point, right? When they play
Yeah.
a team, later in the season, I expect that defense to be there, and we know it'll shift a little bit.
Hmm.
Greg, we're going to stick with you really quick, kind of getting to Get Money, and
Yeah.
Ty McCray with 27. They had
Yep.
6 players in double figures. So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
5. Math is very hard. 5 players in double figures. I'm sorry, Tysheen McCray with 27, Ty McCray with 12. They're definitely related, but
Yeah.
so yeah, 5 players in double figures, a really well balanced attack. Their first game in the league. What'd you see from Get Money, Greg? That kind of gives you some of that, positive vibes.
I think that they took the first game in stride. I think a lot of the problem with a lot of teams in this league is they come in thinking they're going to dominate. I did the same thing when I joined, and it's kind of like a little humbling experience because it's just a different type of basketball. And I think they got better as the game went on. They kind of figured out, where their strengths were, where their weaknesses were. Also, to be fair, they got one of the 2 harder matchups to have for your debut game, and I think they handled it really well. I know, Rosinski will be like, "Oh, we weren't full strength," but still, you play who you play, and I think they did a really good job. I really like this team going forward. I think they have a really good dynamic. They're not really ball dominant. They pass, they play good defense, they're very athletic. And honestly, I really like what I see from this team. I think that going forward, if they can kind of figure out this, lower rim kind of game that like someone like Mike Davis, for instance, is a good example. He just you can tell Eric Langston, like Reggie Stewart, another good one who will come next week. Those guys, they just know how to play on this size rims. And I think these guys, once they kind of figure that out, they might, get the ball rolling a little bit.
And this is called a transition as I kind of was watching Crown Squad and the basketballers. The first couple plays, players were trying to dunk in that second game I'm talking about, and they were like missing or like they were going for the dunk is my point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to Ty McCray again after the game, and I was like, it takes a game or two for kind of newer players to realize, sure, dunking is cool, but that's actually not what this is about. Like to be competitive, and that's what one of those points that we made about Yagga, right? And those returning teams, yes, they still dunk, and everybody still dunks. The point is that can't be your focus if you're trying to win the game, because you do still have to shoot and make shots and play defense and play basketball, right? And that's what Get Money realized after this game, which is a good thing for them to kind of figure.
I like them going forward. I really do.
Agreed. Getting to that Crown Squad and basketballers game, we're going to get to Jahbari in a second, but it is the basketbrawlers, the Brawlers, getting their win, with 2 of the newer teams. They do have some returning players like Chad McCoy, Frank Morale, Michael Grillo, I believe, has played in the league before, but they win by 8. A huge third quarter is the story of that game. We're going to get to Jahbari and that kind of third quarter run by the basketballers in a second, but really led by new player Alex Hopkins is 26, and as I mentioned, Chad McCoy is 15. Jahbari, for the basketballers, again, your first time kind of seeing this league at all, so it's always interesting, that kind of different perspective. But for the basketballers getting their first win, what did they do in that third quarter where they outscored Crown Squad by 16? And I caught part of this being there. It was a run. I don't know exactly how much. It felt like an 8 or 10 point kind of run, kind of burst by them. What'd they do in that third quarter to kind of build that margin, that lead?
So basically, in quarters 1 and 2, it was like they're having a little shaky start and trying to get into the rhythm. Then going towards quarter 3, with the additional player number 13 came a little late. Him adding on his presence and stuff like that boosted their confidence. It gave them a smooth rhythm, and they just got runs playing and stuff like that. And it was such fast pace, and it's like it was to the point where the Crown didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to stop number 13 or number 22. It was so dominant. They was dominating everywhere.
Yeah, and 13 is Chad McCoy. So again, him coming late and kind of being added into the rotation was a huge boost. And 22 is Alex Hopkins. There you go, exactly right. So yeah, the stats will be up on the website. We usually share them on the screen with you guys. We're updating our website, so they will be available to everyone probably by the time you watch this. We'll post when they're up, but we do have the stats for you guys. But yeah, those 2 players really led the way, and kind of not to overlook Crown Squad altogether. Jabari, we talked before we kind of started the show. That could have been it for Crown Squad, right? Like, all right, the other team made a run. That's the game. That happens kind of on the wrong side of things sometimes. They kind of tried to turn it around in that fourth quarter. And it wasn't, just they didn't fold up is my point. So talking about Crown Squad quickly, and I'll give you their leading scores really quick. Raquan Nash with 14. Again, a lot of balance there as well. Elijah Williams with 10. Darren Mercedes with 9. So, a lot more balance for them and not as high scoring as that first game. But Jabari, what did Crown Squad do, kind of after that run that they can build on kind of getting into next week?
I want to say more of talking wise. I feel as in my defense that they wasn't really talking too much. They was letting brawlers get to their head easily. Like you said, with the addition of number 13, what's his name again? Chad. Chad, once he came in, not only was he dominating, he was also getting in their heads and stuff like that, intimidating them, which got to them, or which started a converted argument between the groups and stuff like that, which was getting to them. So in my defense, I feel like going into the next game, they have to work on not getting intimidated easily, using that into their motivation, as if he's trying to intimidate, it means, I like he's worried about me basically. It's like he knows that I could dominate, so I should use this to my benefit in a way. And I feel like also, like I said earlier, communication wise and rhythm, they didn't really have no rhythm, I feel like, in my defense, until late into the fourth quarter. They had a little, fourth quarter, they had a better game. They Crown had 18, Brawlers had 12, but the only reason why they only had a better quarter is because of the fact that, Brawlers sort of took their foot off the pedal a little bit. So they let them, in my defense, move, like, get into their rhythm. But I feel as if Crown should have been able by halftime to make them adjustments as possible and stuff like that, to understand what they're facing against, how this new player is playing and stuff like that, how he's maneuvering the game and stuff like that, and what to do better. So,
Yeah.
but I feel as if they can make those adjustments, I feel as if they're a contender team in my defense. I like them. I like their game. It's just that all they need is better communication in my defense.
Yeah. And I think, that it's something to keep an eye on next week, right? As they get a different team and get more experience in the league for sure. We're going to stick on court 3 because I know we're up against a time crunch here today as well. So we'll kind of keep Jabari on there and hopefully at the end of the show get to, a player to watch if we have some time. But that first game on court 3, Sportslook is one of those returning teams with a lot of familiar faces on it. And the Biggest Skis are one of the newer teams. It is the Biggest Skis winning 68-51. We can kind of always go by the quarter stuff here, but Sportslook did have a 5-point lead after the first quarter, and then were outscored by 9 in the second quarter and kept it close. And then really it just got away from them in the fourth quarter, kind of by looking at the box score here. But Jahbari was over there for the entire thing. And so with Sportslook, let me give you some stats quickly first. Only 4 players, right? So it kind of doesn't split the scoring up too much. Brian Acevedo and John Zervos with 18 each. Dan Kokoros with 15. And then for the Biggest Skis, we had 2 players with 14 points, Elijah Henry and Devin Serrano. So, a lot more balance, a lot more subbing for the Biggest Skis in their first game. I mean, was that kind of the difference in this one, that it just kind of, was too much, and as the game went on, just didn't, not having enough bodies ended up kind of being the difference here?
Yeah, I feel as if Biggest Skis, the advantage they had was substitutions. Sports look, they didn't have substitutions really at all. So it's like stamina wise, they was getting drained out. They started slacking towards the second half, not getting back to the defense wise. They're just slacking, letting them score, letting them get to their shots and stuff like that. I feel as if they had more substitutions and stuff like that, it would have been slightly a change. But I also still feel as if the other difference to the impact of that was also injuries wise. It was a few injuries going on within the game. Like you said, I believe it was John Zervos. He's one of the main players who he went through like a little ankle injury, but he played through it, but it was affecting his game a lot. So,
Yeah,
but,
yeah. And I,
he, no, sorry, my fault. I didn't mean
no,
to
you
interrupt
good.
you.
Go ahead.
Even though, it affected him, he still was playing, but he wasn't playing to what his potential is. So it was hard for him to play on defense and moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that team, they've admitted, and Greg can shake his head on this one, that they are older than they have been, right? They've been around a while, and no one in the league, myself, none of us are actually old, but compared to where, the age they were when they started playing, 7 years ago now, over 7 years ago now, they are definitely older. And it's so funny, some of that shows sometimes, right? And of course, getting back in the swing of it, and it's so funny watching teams, which I'm sure we'll see this season, round into shape, especially when they have more players too, right? But watching them round into shape as the season goes on and really hopefully be hitting their peak come playoff time, right? That's always the goal. Every team makes the playoffs, so really it's just about being at your best in a one and done tournament. That's the goal for every team. So yeah, I mean, I think really good on that team, and we'll kind of see if the biggest skis next week. I'm not even sure who they play, and we'll get the schedule going in a second. But it'll be interesting to see if they can keep it going, and get to 2-0 and kind of start to rack up some of these wins. The other fully just about team that came back and wrapped up our night on court, one Redeem Team, wins by 24. Thanks to 28 from Eric Singleton and 23 from Miles Raymond. So again, some familiar faces. Will Hudson with 14, and he'll hate me for saying that he did, miss a dunk, and the picture came out great, but he just got too excited. It happens. But a lot of those familiar faces for Redeem Team do help them get the win. As for would have been, we'll get to Greg in a second, but Jacob Morales with 28, and then really no other player with more than 10. So we'll get to would have been in a second as one of those newer teams trying to feel some stuff out. But Greg, for Redeem Team, no Reggie Stewart, but they still had a lot of familiar faces. Dante, Eddie Whitman, Cody DiLeonardo. We can name their whole team here, right? But again, all players that we are familiar with how they play. How did they look last night?
So they look good. I just want to start with a story that'll make you happy. Eric threw an alley-oop to Cody, or one of the other ways, and they yelled "Run TMC" to each other. So figured you'd
shout
enjoy
out.
that one. But as far as how they look, they look great. Eric Singleton he continues to be one of the better players in this league every time he plays. He's awesome. I mean, I've always said how good he is. I don't really need to go into detail. Everyone knows he's just a special player. His game and this size rims works perfect. He's great at 10 foot too, but he just understands just how to play, and he's just amazing defensively. He had a few blocks. He's amazing rebounding for kind of a guy who just plays like a combo guard position. He's a great shooter, and he's just kind of the star of this team, when obviously Reggie will come as well. But the good thing about Reggie and him is they've played together. They don't really have to worry about the chemistry thing. It might be different for this team, kind of figuring out a few roles here and there. But, I mean, this team just looks well-rounded. They look good. Them and Yagga, to me, seem like they're kind of separating because they have the experience, they have the talent, and they also have the size. But that is kind of the one thing. I mean, this team has Will, this team has Cody, but if I guess that's the one thing. If Yaga's for me, it's Yaga's defense, and for this team, it's a little bit of the lack of size. But I mean, Eddie was knocking down shots. Dante's looking great on defense. Cody's one of the more underrated defensive players in this league. And Miles Raymond also had a great game. That was one of the better games I've seen him play in this league. So honestly, all around, I think that Redeem Teams, they're coming. They're ready to redeem themselves, and they're looking really good.
Yeah, and we'll touch on Redeem Team and Yagga in a second, Greg. But as far as would have been, Jacob Morales obviously 28 and shot 12 of 20. So, pretty good shooting night for him as well. I mean, just kind of touching on him, I guess, and really any other bright spot for would have been in their first game.
Jacob Morales, star. He's a great player. He's very athletic, fast, high flying. He kind of gets this league. He just gets the ball and attacks. He can shoot, but he just attacks the rim. And he's very athletic, and he's perfect. He's going to do some big things. He's going to score a lot of points, and he's going to keep this team in a lot of games this year. But the problem with this team is they just didn't have the depth to go with Redeem Team. They have so many players that were just coming in and out. And when Jacob Morales left, the offense kind of sputtered a little bit. So they just kind of got to figure it out with the other guys. and then just keep feeding Jacob Morales because he is a star in the making.
Awesome. All right. I know I prepped Jahbari on this one. We like to do some questions to kind of wrap up the show since those are the 4 week 1 games. And again, the full schedule will be out shortly on the website. We'll be able to do a little more previews in the future. Not too much to really preview now because again, we've seen each team once. So it actually kind of works out well. But as far as, you know, some teams are going to play twice because there's 8 teams and every team gets 8 regular season games. So if you start doing, you know, the breakdown here, some teams are going to play twice. And I call it rivalry week because they are predetermined rather than leaving it to chance. And so I'm pretty sure, because this is not my first rodeo, that Yagga and Redeem Team will play twice, which is just, you know, it's what we did in Rhode Island over the summer, where kind of and I'm not always right, but the assumed kind of better teams or the teams that were returning players to kind of build those rivalries, hence the name rivalry week, right? Rivalry week. Say that 7 times fast, but to kind of build those matchups, right? And so seeing those 2 teams play twice and then possibly a third time in the playoffs is just going to be great. And I'm looking forward to that. All right, Jahbari, your player from the games on court 3 that you saw that kind of stood out to you from week 1.
From the first game, I have 2 players. First one, Elijah Henry, the way he was dominating the paint, and then defensive wise, sending stuff, getting steals, playing great defense. That's an all around player you will want on your team. He's a he's a he's a great player to be around when you need it. And then the second player on that team, Devin Serrano. That's a great player right there. Great shot maker. He was hitting some daggers in that game that was really making the league just a blowout. And it was just like the game wasn't even close no more because of him. And then for the second game, I would want to say it would be I want to say I forgot his name. Hold on
Which team?
Oh wait, Alex Hawkins. Alex Hawkins. For the Brawlers. Like I said earlier, in the beginning of the quarters and stuff like that, he was the main person scoring for their teams and stuff like that. He was the man before Chad McCoy came. He was the one that was dominating and stuff like that. Even when Chad McCoy came, he still was dominating. It was just Chad McCoy was an extra help for him, in my defense. And not taking away from Chad McCoy helping out a lot, but Alex Hawkins, in my defense, didn't really need help. Even though the game would have possibly been closer than what it was, still feel as if, you know, Chad McCoy would have got it done. Brawlers still would have won at the end of the day. But yeah, the way he dominated in the paint, he was getting everything he wanted. And then all the rebounds and stuff like that. Especially with the amount of players they had less players than Crown had. Crown had a lot of players. Brawlers was working on at least 6 players. So with him and stuff like that, having that much stamina to play through all those quarters and stuff like that and dominating is impressive.
For sure, and I know you may have to head off soon, Jahbari. So good job in case you do sneak off. And I know we got all the questions in. I love it. Greg, you're one player just from both games. If you can kind of pick one from both, who would you focus on from last night's games?
Yeah, so I'll do 2. I'll do one who, have been in the league before, and I'll do one who hasn't. I'll make the first one quick. Eric Singleton. I just want to give him his flowers again. He was phenomenal last night. He was one of those players where he just came out and hit all his free throws, hit all his threes. He just did everything out there, and it was efficient. Like when his stats obviously eventually come out on the website, it is just unreal. I encourage people to look at it. But my second one is going to be probably Tysheem McCree, just because he was the type of athletic and the kind of the post dominance that works in this league. And he's going to have a lot easier matchups going forward when he's not playing Yagga. I mean, he was going against Eric Langston and Dave Armstrong, and I mean, even Pratt. Like, those are some big dudes, and it's not easy to score down low with those guys there. So I think he has a really bright future in this league. So those 2 are going to be mine.
Yeah, and again, Taishin, 27 points,
Yep.
3 made threes, and 11 for 19. So, you know,
Yeah.
even against one of the better teams in his first game in the league, you know, showing how effective he can be and the type of impact we expect him to have for sure throughout the rest of the season. Greg, how's it feel to be back?
Feels good to be back. I'm excited. Got some good teams. I'm excited to. The cool thing is there's some new teams, so I'm excited to see how they progress. Like I've seen all these teams, like a lot of the teams returning. You're like used to the problems they have, but the new ones, it's exciting to see what they can do to figure it out.
That's right. I usually say 5.5 / kind of 6 new teams. I would say is fair. So, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of new teams, and it's going to be a very, very fun season. So keep an eye on our Instagram, legacy_leagues. The legacyleagues.com website will be updated, and that'll be where you'll find your stats, the standings, the schedule, everything like that. Player pages. We took a ton of pictures last night. We'll be posting those on Facebook. Those interviews are up on Facebook, and everything kind of funnels through Instagram eventually, but we do kind of post some stuff all over. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, TikTok, even the website, YouTube's a big one where we put all of our video content. So keep an eye for top plays of the week. We'll have our week 1 power rankings and the post-game show. You're already checking it out. So we appreciate you checking it out, and we'll be ready for week 2 on the 21st. Greg, thanks so much, and thanks for watching.